Thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup with me, Niraj Shah. It's a big global day today because lots of Asian developments have happened, and it's something that you should watch out for. Thankfully, the Middle Eastern tensions haven't spiked crude oil materially. But what's happened in terms of spikes, I mean, speaking of spikes, iron ore prices have not just spiked, they've surged. Futures are up over 10%, future prices above $110 per ton currently. And why is this happened? Simply because China, three of the biggest Chinese cities have eased home buying curbs. Guangzhou city has removed all restrictions on home buyers. Shanghai and Shenzhen have lowered the minimum down payment ratios for the first and second homes to 15 and 20%. China is now suddenly seeing some massive action and activity. So keep an eye out for this. I think what's aiding and what's the impact of this, the easing of curbs will bolster demand outlook for the world's biggest iron ore consumer as well. So that's something that you certainly have to keep an eye out for. I think what might happen is that some of the beneficiaries will benefit, and I'll talk about it. I think steel is up 5%, iron ore futures up 10%. So a lot of stocks in focus today. US markets had a quiet kind of a day. Futures too quiet currently, but Asia is a different kettle of fish, and don't get perturbed when you look at Nikkei individually, because this is a very individual move, but it has ramifications, viewers, by the way, because what's happened, amongst other things, like I said, is a lot of news flow in Japan. Former defense minister and leader of the Liberal Democratic Party, Shigeru Ishiba, has been elected as the next Prime Minister of Japan. Now, why is this important? Because Mr. Ishiba was known to be a hawk, and therefore people believe that it could lead to rate action and rising yen, which could be spelling trouble for the yen carry trade. Now, to his credit, Mr. Ishiba on Sunday said that the country's monetary policy must remain accommodative as a trend, and it will be upon the Bank of Japan entirely. So now the market is confused which way, but for now, the action is that the yen has appreciated. Japanese markets are down. Whether this percolates into the rest of the Asian screen over the course of the next few days and weeks, if indeed there is some rate action which brings about further impact of the yen carry trade, remains to be seen. But which is why Japan was important. Our markets 0.5% lower, nothing too dramatic, but yes, starting off lower for sure. Now, what's the trade setup? There is a higher top, higher bottom formation on the Nifty, which is usually construed positively. But I think we are nearing overbought conditions. Viewers, last week I said you've got to be careful on leverage trades, not necessarily take money off the table. We still not take money off the table zone, but I think very soon we could be there. So just be mindful of your leverage positions. That's the limited point I'm urging any and all of you who are listening into this. There's very strong moves last week in energy stocks, and therefore remain key tradable names. I mean, you saw what happened to BPCL, HPCL, IOC, even Reliance for that matter, but oil marketing companies in particular had a fabulous Friday. I don't know if we can pull up those charts here, but the kind of price and volume action that we saw in BP, HP, IOC was quite stellar, and therefore those are set of names that you want to keep keenly watch out for in trade. You also got to be mindful of the fact that this is what BPCL has done. Thank you so much, my producers. But 6.5% for BP, HP, IOC too were very, very active in the session in Friday's trade. Now, the other point is metals could be in focus as well in the session today on the China measures that I just spoke about. Now, remember on Friday, CLSA came out with a note, and they said that they see the highest upside for Vedanta, Tata Steel and Hindalco. Remember, this was on Friday. The stocks moved a little bit on Friday, but I'm certain metals will be in focus today. From a Lloyds to an NMDC to a Tata Steel to a JSW Steel or Vedanta, all of them will be in focus today. Some stocks have moved into the SM framework. So BF Utilities and Z Media Corporation, particularly Z Media, which was very active last few days, moved out of short-term ASM, BSE, IFL Securities, Morpen, Ram Ratnavayas, Uflex. These two, by the way, will be in focus for other reasons. I'll come to them in a moment. There's a listing today, Manba Finance, the second most subscribed IPO of 2024. 150 crore IPO, subscribed 224 times. Very likely will be a stellar listing, so watch out for this one as well. Okay, stocks to watch today. Watch out for Welspun Enterprises, declared L1 bidder by BMC for a project worth 1990 crores. could be interesting. So certainly something you want to keep an eye out for. PNC Infratech, the other infra name, approved the sale of the assets and undertakings of the company. Approximate aggregate enterprise value of all of the target SPVs, about 9,000 odd crores. Difficult to call out the valuations, needs to study in detail, but I would suspect that this should be construed positively for PNC Infra. So watch out for this one, could react positively in the session today. Then Lupin could be in focus today. A lot of pharma actually. So Lupin, why? The US FDA inspection ended with 3 observations each on the API and finished product side. 2 facilities, each of them had 3 observations when it comes to Lupin. The US FDA inspected the Pithampur Unit 1 API and the manufacturing facility from these dates. Now remember, Pithampur is very important for Lupin for the US supplies, and therefore I suspect that Lupin could be under a bit of cloud in the session today. So certainly this one in focus. Biocon is the other one which will be in focus. US FDA inspection at the Bengaluru API facility ended with 4 observations. The company said this is not having a material impact on their ops, but the worrying part is this. US FDA has completed the inspection at the Biocon Biologics facility at Johor Bahru in Malaysia, and that has ended with 8 observations and issuance of Form 483. So this is a bit of an issue. I would suspect Biocon could react negatively today. Jubilant Pharma Nova 2. The Montreal facility has received an OAI. It contributes to less than 10% of the CDMO revenues. Maybe not as material, but I would suspect that this one too could have a bit of a negative reaction. Piramal Pharma though, Ahmedabad facility received 0 observations, could be positive. Iron ore price upticks, I told you that they have happened. What could be the potential beneficiaries? NMDC and Lloyds Metal. So watch out for this one. By the way, these stocks have had a phenomenal rally in the recent past, but I suspect there is more in store. Exchanges have reduced transaction fees, so watch out for Angel One, IFL Securities, 5paisa, ICICI Securities. All of these could be impacted negatively. Viewers, keep in mind, there could be a negative move on all of these because it impacts their EBIT, and therefore you will see a negative reaction on all of these stocks in the session today as well. Couple of brokerage notes. HSBC has initiated coverage on Varun Beverages with a buy rating, target price of 780, which is a 24% upside. They believe the company can become the largest PepsiCo bottler in history. That's the key telling line. And then a lot of other things, double-digit volume growth via geographic expansion, so on and so forth. Last but not the least, Jefferies has come out with a note on NTPC. They said the green DRHP filed and they see value unlocking ahead. The reason? They are saying that they assume a 10 to 15% stake dilution, and NTPC's renewable energy unit is at NTPC RE is at a 2x premium to its coal business. So therefore, it could potentially add 5 to 11% upside on the current market price for NTPC. So do watch out. Maybe a fair reaction to NTPC could be seen today. The news came during market as on Friday, but now that brokerages have analyzed this, maybe there is a positive impact here. But all in all, metals on one side, positive. Pharma on one side, negative, but a lot of moving parts, including Japan, Middle Eastern tensions with all that Israel has done. Crude hasn't reacted, so keep that in mind. But lots of moving parts today. Be careful with your trades, but promises to be an exciting day of trade. Thanks so much for tuning in.